Okay, hey everyone, Jamie Batts, your instructor for Bio 221, and this is part 5 of chapter 26. We ended off the last video briefly going into the Vasa Recta, and I just want to kind of backtrack a little bit. So the Vasa Recta is different from the peritubular capillaries. The Vasa Recta is present in special nephrons called juxtamedullary nephrons. These are nephrons which dip way down into the medulla of the kidneys, and they help to I know I keep saying that your urine gets super concentrated, but these are highly specialized nephrons which are activated and function in super concentrating your urine. So when you're in times of deep dehydration, these guys are working overtime to make sure that your body can retain every single drop of water that it can. And the reason these are so efficient is because the medulla of the kidney is highly concentrated with solutes. There's lots of urea and solutes within the medulla, which surrounds the structure called the Vasa Recta and these juxtamedullary nephron loops, which are very deep and very big compared to the cortical nephrons, which were the other nephrons we were mostly talking about before. So the Vasa Recta is just a specialized capillary network which runs parallel to the loop of Henle, nephron loop, within these juxtamedullary nephrons. And it's really just there to pull more solutes out. And that's all this diagram is trying to show you. That's on page 967. It's showing you how this parallel blood flow can help with that, with the altering solute concentrations. And the next diagram that's on page 968 is showing you the cycling of the urea. Again, as I said, the urea is excreted in the filtrate, but some of it's reabsorbed to maintain solute concentrations within the kidney, and the kidney tissue itself has to maintain a certain level of solute concentration so it can pull the water out of the filtrate. So that's what that urea cycle is all about. 969 is showing you the urine concentrating mechanism. Again, there's numbers involved. The big picture is very small percentages of the initial filtrate is actually left by the time the filtrate gets to the end of the collecting duct. Lots of solutes, sodium, chloride, water are being reabsorbed along the way, and various amounts of calcium and other things depending on other hormones that may be present. So important to understand, again, there's a step-by-step process there. I'm a big believer in diagramming it out, redrawing it, putting each of those steps on note cards, mixing up the note cards, seeing if you can put them in order, paraphrasing those little steps, or just trying to teach the steps to someone else, all active ways of studying that topic. The diagram on page 970 is showing you the actual mechanism for the Renin-Angiotensin system. It's the system that I alluded to before with the JG apparatus or JG complex, which is right there next to the afferent arteriole, dipsticking the blood, checking the blood pressure, checking for red blood cell concentration. So renin will be secreted from the kidneys if there is a low blood pressure or a low red blood cell count. And what that basically does is it's going to signal angiotensin 1, which is in the liver, or angiotensinogen is the enzyme which travels to the lungs to convert angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, and that angiotensin 2 activates the adrenal cortex to release aldosterone. So the aldosterone coming from the adrenal cortex is then going to create those lovely little receptors, or channels rather, within the kidney itself to allow for active transport of solutes out of the filtrate, specifically sodium, right? Aldosterone, sodium reabsorption. So, and I think in another video I said aldosterone comes from the pituitary. Ooh, sorry. It's definitely the adrenal. I remember as I was saying that I thought that sounded wrong. Anyways, The next little figure on 972 is showing you the effect of ADH. ADH is the antidiuretic hormone. That one does come from the pituitary. And ADH is basically going to put more channels within the DCT to reabsorb more water, so that you can retain the water in your body for whatever reason that you may need it, probably because you're not drinking enough water. And there's usually, oh, here's the cool diagram. I like to look at this one, page 974. Again, I'm not a numbers person, but if you look at it, and you can really tell the difference between these two collecting systems. ADH works mainly on the collecting system as opposed to the DCT. The DCT is mostly aldosterone. ADH is mostly the collecting system, or the collecting duct. So you see on this diagram, and I'm just looking at it. Can you see my page? It's right here. It starts with an osmolarity of around 100, and then by the end of the tube with ADH, you have a super concentrated urine of around 1200 osmoles. But if you don't have ADH, then it stays at 100. None of that water is reabsorbed, and you're peeing a lot. And that happens if you are very hydrated and you are drinking lots of water. You have to pee a lot. That's why. You don't need that ADH anymore. Your ADH secretion slows down, and so you're urinating out all of that lovely water that you're drinking. Let's talk about urine formation and where it goes. Not really a good, I'm looking for a good picture to show you. We'll probably just flip back to the beginning of the chapter. Those first couple pictures, page 949, where you see the collecting systems and what's called the calyx, or the calyces. And these are the yellow things which are just below the medulla. They almost look like little cups there. All of the collecting ducts from all of the thousands of nephrons within the kidney are going to dump into the minor calyx, and the minor calyces dump into the major calyx. That major calyx, which is within that renal sinus area where all the vessels are, and that major calyx is dumping into the ureter. Each kidney has one ureter, and the ureter will carry, going back to page 978, the ureter carries the urine from the kidney down into the urinary bladder. It actually is moved with peristalsis, just like your digestive system. So you have the you have the same smooth muscle that you have lining your digestive system, the longitudinal and circular muscles. You have those within your ureters, and it's constantly being formed, which is why if you pee now, right, and then you go to the doctor and they ask for a urine sample, you should be able to squeeze at least a little bit out. And that is because your bladder is constantly being filled. And you can see there with that picture of the bladder, the ureters kind of come in on the posterior, inferior side of the bladder, and the urine collects in an area called the trigone. It's this little triangle funnel-shaped area. And then as your bladder fills, it can hold up to a liter. I think I remember reading that somewhere. It can hold up to a liter, which that's a lot of pee, right? Once it gets to a certain level, stretch receptors will fire up into your brain and say, hey, I gotta pee, there's lots of urine in here. And then your body will say, no, not yet, I'm not in the bathroom, right? Unless you're a baby or a toddler in some cases, and then the pee just comes out, right? So the process of potty training is actually training your sphincter muscles at the within your urethra to open and close when you tell them to, and not when that signal fires off in your brain. So there's the feedback loop there on page 980 showing you kind of that reflex loop. But there is an internal and external urethral sphincter, even though this diagram only shows you the external. The external is the important one. That's the one that you're learning to control as you potty train, and the one that you may lose control of as you get older. It happens. So effects of aging on the kidneys, just like with everything, you become less efficient, so your kidneys aren't going to be filtering as much, or they might be filtering too much. Effects of hypertension and diabetes and other diseases that affect your blood pressure or blood concentration, liver disease, may cause long-term effects on your kidneys, which accumulate as you age, all decreasing their effectiveness. And just like with your endocrine system, your kidneys are strongly linked to your hormones, and the tissues become kind of desensitized to hormones. So even though the ADH may be present, even though the aldosterone may be present, your tissues may not be responding as they should be. There's a little chart here, a little inset on acute renal failure and the symptoms and what to look for and the treatments and how all the different body systems affect or will be affected in renal failure. Just like with everything, everything in your body is intimately linked to each other. So it's really important that you are at this point, and I think I touched on this a little bit before, you should be able to put together everything that you're learning at this point. It sounds crazy because I know we've covered a lot in this class and last semester. I get it. I've taught this class for, 6 or 7 years. And so I know how tough it is and how you feel like you're just, there's no time to learn all of this stuff. And you're just studying it for the test, studying it for the quiz, and then kind of forgetting it. But remember, you're in this class, to go on into a medical program or to apply this knowledge somewhere. So it is important that you're putting this stuff together, big picture. So if I come at you and I say, this person has this, you should be able to kind of trace the steps. These case studies should be getting more and more kind of relatable for you. You should be able to look at these case studies and assume or hypothesize an answer before you're doing research and looking it up. And that's kind of my hope for you, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to include case studies this semester, because I feel like they do help you paint a big picture of a person. And even though not all of you are going into a clinical setting, it's kind of the whole purpose of this course, to prepare you to understand how the human body works as a whole system. And frankly, there's just not enough time for me to teach it as a whole big picture. So we have to learn it in these little individual systems, and hopefully all of those pieces fit together in our minds. So please let me know if you have questions on Chapter 26. There are some great critical thinking questions at the end of the chapter. I love looking at those to help jog my own memory as your instructor, as well as maybe getting inspiration for exam questions. Hint, hint, maybe? I don't know. So anyways, let me know what questions you guys have, and have a great day/night. Bye.